Hi everyone, it's Misty, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of our Creative Weekly Wisdom here on CCL. Today I'm going to show you two different techniques on using alcohol lift ink with the alcohol inked background. So this works on any type of alcohol ink background, so I'm not going to show you creating the backgrounds. I have previous videos showing that, and I ended up with I have a ton of different backgrounds just over, time playing. You might play and then it doesn't turn out, so you set it aside because that's just not what you're going for at that moment. And I never get rid of my alcohol backgrounds because even this might be, okay, what do I do with it? It's bright, it's dark, or you have one that maybe you had some mistakes on it and it didn't turn out quite right. Well, that's a good background to do additional things to. And I'm going to show you one using a stencil, a dauber, and then your alcohol lift ink. This is the most important piece here that you need. And this is a special ink, and it's designed by Ranger and Tim Holtz. And what it does is it actually reacts with your alcohol inks and it lifts it up wherever you've put it. So today it's kind of like multiple technique sharing with you because you're going to create some additional backgrounds, because I'm also going to share a second technique, and that's using a stamp. And so when we get to that part, I'll go through that with you. First, you need any type of stencil. I prefer one that is not as intricate. It just makes getting your dauber into the spaces a little easier when it's a little bit more opened. I'm actually using today this this stencil here by CC Designs, and it's actually birthday balloons. And then this dauber I think is just like a cheap dauber. It doesn't need to be anything special. I just like these because you can put your finger into it. You can use any other type of daubers you have. You can even use like a blending tool like this. Just remember that once you get the ink on the pad, you're kind of, that pad you can't use for anything else. But I think makeup sponges might even work for this. Anything that's going to transfer the ink into the little areas. And then the other thing you're going to need for this is you're going to need a paper towel of some kind. And that's just, so towards the end we're going to actually rub off any excess ink that's left on this. Okay, so not a lot for this one. Now my paper I'm using Yupo paper, and it does come in the, I think this is 5x7 size. I cut mine down to fit on a A2 card just for the future, and that way the extra piece I had left over I can use on a future card without having this stencil on it. So we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna dauber. I'm probably gonna fast forward this part because it's kind of tedious, but you just want to make sure you're dipping quite generally into your ink, and then you're gonna we're gonna do each little spot here, and you're just gonna dab it, maybe move it around a little bit just to pull up, and then you're just gonna let it sit. We'll pull up more of the ink when we get to the paper towel portion. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and peel out. Remember, this is kind of like a sticky ink, like embossing ink. So you are gonna want to, when you clean your stencil, use soap. I wouldn't use just a baby wipe. I mean, you can if it doesn't bother you. I might even use some like little alcohol wipes just to get anything off. Like I said, because it's a stickier type of ink. Okay, I'm just removing these. Okay. Okay. And you can sort of see the design. You can see the happy birthday, and it's kind of a busier background for this. But then when you rub it, that design, I don't know if you can tell, it's going to actually come through even more. And this is why I do things a little on the heavier side with this process. Some of these I could have even gone over a little bit more than I did. Like I said, you can see that it's got that slight birthday stenciled background. Depending on what color your background is, like if it's darker, more vibrant, this one I did have a lot of the alcohol solution on it, so because there's not as much actual alcohol ink, it didn't react quite as much. But on my next piece, I didn't. This was when I believe I used the squishing technique, and so there was not that much alcohol. You can just see the difference in how light this background was to start with versus this one. So this one here, we are going to do the stamping, and I'm going to show you how that one will come out. And this one also creates a second background. So you don't want to waste what ends up on your stamp. So after we stamp this, we're going to stamp the actual stamp onto a second piece. And so this one, I'm using the Cue the Confetti background stamp by MFT. So it's going to be a nice big stamp like this. And I'm not going to use any type of positioner. I'm just going to go ahead and lay it down on here and use my hand. So it's quite a big stamp. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to take this. This technique, by the way, you don't have to just work with background stamps. You can do this with any stamps that you own, and just use the alcohol lift ink, stamp it on here, and basically it's like taking the color off of anywhere you stamped, and then you can transfer that onto another piece of the same type of alcohol paper that you've used. And that's kind of like creating as if you used alcohol inks on your stamp to begin with. It's really cool, and I really love this technique. So I'm going to try and get as much ink on here as possible, as generously as possible. This is a new pad, but I don't feel like it's as juicy as it should be. I feel like maybe that's why on that last one it wasn't as vibrant either. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to let this sit a little bit to really pull up that ink. I feel like I should have done this the opposite way too. Like this. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so now I'm going to carefully lift that off. And then I'm going to, before any of this ink dries, I'm going to directly go to the next one. And actually I'm just going to, I don't know exactly where this is lined up, but I'm going to just stick that right on there. It'll eventually get cut down for an A2 card. So. And look how cool that is. You can see like the confetti background. It's much more dramatic if you have a larger stamp background, but I love this. You can see all the different colors. Just like we did with the other technique where we rubbed off any of the excess alcohol lift ink, which will pull up more. We're going to go ahead and do that here as well. And this is really good. You can see how much ink is on here versus using the dauber. But oh my goodness, this is so cool. Okay, and I mean, look, I think that's really pretty right in there. And it kind of reminds me of like strawberries, you know, like the little seeds on the outside of strawberries. But that's basically the technique. Like I said, stamps that have a good solid surface work really well for this. You can see how you have like the fine lines, but just remember, both these, the more detailed your stencil or your stamp is, the more complicated this whole process becomes. So I really like using the background sort of bigger type of stamps, ones with more surface, you know, area and stuff like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and it was just a quick little simple technique I wanted to share with you guys today. Just a couple with the alcohol lipped ink, and just how you can take your backgrounds, you can create a, you know, even a second background, and that way, you know, it's not as busy. If this bothers you, alcohol inks being so busy, you can just take it and make it so it's not so busy. Okay, so I'm going to share with you guys the card I created for this segment here. I had recorded the making of this card, but my battery had died partway through, so I lost most of the footage. So I'm just going to walk you through what I created. And I went ahead and I used the background that we created with our technique, and this is the one that has the confetti, and that's the ink that we pulled up from this background. And I started with a card base with Nina Solar White cardstock for an A2 card, and then I matted the background onto some blue Prestige cardstock from MFT, and I decided I wanted to give it some movement and just a little bit more depth and not so flat with just plain cardstock. So I distressed the edges. I first used the Tim Holtz distressing tool, and because their cardstock is a solid core, so there's no, when you distress, you won't see any like white pull up. It's just the color that the cardstock comes in, so it gives this nice just like fluffy kind of a look. And then I put some foam adhesive to give it a little dimension on the card base, and after I did that, I took my finger and just went around it and fluffed it up more, and then also gave it like just kind of a just natural flow of movement to where it wasn't just one straight line. And then for the rest of the card, I went with some ephemera from Tim Holtz. This is from, I think this is called their photo booth set, and then this is from the Field Notes ephemera set. And then for the balloons in the back, I stamped these balloons from the, which one is this called? This is called the Balloon Bundle. And what I did is, you can see that I had actually just colored some of it, and I cut out just the ones I wanted to be poking through. I ended up using these three colors. I don't know how well you can see that. And I like the way it came out. I kind of combined some of the pink and the yellow to get like this kind of orange gradient going here. And then the same on this one. And then these ones, I combined the yellow, the two different colored yellows, one that's a little darker, and it kind of gave like this more of a yellow, and this one is a little bit more darker than the orange. I just like the way it kind of played. And then with the sentiment here, I used the sentiment from this die, and this says, "Let's pretend it's so your birthday." And then I cut it out with this sentiment strip from the MFT. I think it's called, it's just called Stitched Sentiment Strips. So I'll have the description, down in the description box below, I'll have the link to, or not the link, the list to all the supplies. And so I hope you guys really enjoy this technique and you try it out. I love the two different ways that you can turn these backgrounds into something a little bit more. And I really like how you can transfer and create a whole second background and it not be quite as busy as this. I think it's really, really fun. So I'll see you guys in the next episode, and you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.